Good evening to all. Thank you all for coming tonight. And I understand, and I first want to thank Real Talk for initiating this discussion. I think it's a very necessary discussion to have a different perspective. And I was wondering how it came about that the Real Talk initiative came. And it's a very nice story, I must say. And it worked for you guys, and hopefully it will work for us as well. Tonight's topic, the first time I saw it, it is a black perspective and a white perspective. It's not a politically correct way in speaking. You agree in the society today. We've got a black perspective and a white perspective. We don't talk like that anymore. We are moving towards a sort of unity, diversity, accommodating, and here we are having discussions as if we are on opposing side. I first thought it was a black perspective versus a white perspective, and I saw it as two perspectives. But I will fully participate in this, and allow me to make just a few preliminary remarks, because at the night as tonight, it's necessary to qualify yourself and set your boundaries where you are. My name, as stated, is Werner Human. I'm an attorney in Pretoria. We mostly do AfriForum work, and we are legal representatives as well, where we represent AfriForum in different forums, in legal cases, in discussions like this, in radio station discussions like this as well. So it's mostly in the capacity as an attorney for AfriForum that I speak here tonight. That's what I understood to be the goal tonight. And as I said, tonight's theme is almost confrontational, but I want to assure you that I'm going to be honest and robust, but it's not in any way my intention to lift up some anger or to say something that's insensitive. So if there's something that you might think it's not the right place or not the right thing to say, I apologize, but I will do my best to give you a honest perspective, and that's what we are here for. We will get one perspective. So I have one perspective here. It's not going to be a balanced one. It's going to be one perspective, and I understand last night it was another perspective from a one-sided approach. We've said that we all know what the goal is for tonight, but my preliminary remarks is important. Organization as AfriForum, and me speaking here tonight as well, we are not representative of all white people in this country. We are not representative of all Afrikaners. Afrikaners are a very diverse group. If you look at history, from theologians to politicians, we've been all over the political spectrum, so it needs to be stated that I cannot speak on behalf of all Afrikaners. I cannot speak, and AfriForum as an organization, they cannot speak on behalf of all Afrikaners as well. They also have a limited membership group. And tonight's perspective, it is a perspective. It is not the perspective. It is a perspective I would put to you. That's also understand, but I can say with confidence, without, because it seems like I can't speak for anyone if I go on like this, but it's I would say that it's a substantial amount of people that hold this view. I would give you tonight. It's enough to consider and take into consideration. Let me say something about AfriForum and the solidarity movement. There might be some misconceptions. There might be some views which you're not quite sure why they are here or what is it exactly what they're trying to achieve. And I would say that's justified views. AfriForum is a civil rights group. It was formed in 2005, and I would now come back to why it is important. 2005. It was formed in 2005 to be a proactive organization. It's founded on, and it's honestly now to advance and sustain Afrikaans language in the institutions, in schools, in the Constitution we provided fair administrative process through court cases, etc., where you can further your rights through this organization. So it's like any other representing organization for interest groups. It's a positive group as well. It's an organization. They are not doomsayers. They are not people who are saying that we must go to what's that place that a few years ago, the Spar, when something happens, we must all go to the Spar and go in holes. It's not like that. It's a positive organization. They believe we all must remain in South Africa. We must celebrate our diversity. We consist of many groups, and we must find our place here. And it's an important aspect to notice that AfriForum says the rights you have in terms of the Constitution, they are not for free, in the sense that when a certain right stands in the Constitution, you can just accept it for granted and it's there. If you feel strong about that right, you must mobilize, you must organize, and you must fight for that right. Just like people who fight for fair wages, they organize and they will fight for the right. You get organizations like Equal Education, like Section 27, they will fight for that right in the Constitution. So AfriForum is nothing more than that. Then you have the solidarity movement. And the Solidarity Movement is a broad, umbrella-like organization, which encapsulates and consists of many little independent organizations. You get the Solidarity, which is the trade union, and that's for labor matters, etc. You get Helping Hands, which is mostly focused on issues of poverty and so. You get Academia, which is a new private institution, academic institution. You get AfriForum, of course, on the civil rights side. You get Kral Publishers, which publishes books on history, literature, all of that. You get AfriBusiness. It's a commercial organization there to protect commercial interest. So what AfriForum is doing is they're looking at the Constitution and they're saying, how can we further our rights through the Constitution? And that's by organizing people. And the way they do it is by giving, all the members give 10, 20 rand, 50 rand, and little money makes big money, and then you can make a real difference. So that's just a bit of a sketch of the background from where the movement is and how the movement functions. Now, if we look at our view of South Africa, and my view personally of South Africa as well, and as I said, we all may differ. My view of South Africa is that we are not made up of abstract individuals just swifting by and just floating by the country. We are made up of different communities with different interests, with different needs, with different perspectives. And in order to fully celebrate who we are as a country, we can safely say that we are a country with many perspectives, but still one country. It need not be the case that we have one perspective, one narrative, and therefore we achieve a status of one nation, one future, etc. You can be one whole nation and you can accommodate different perspectives. And that's actually how I view our country ideally to be. What I am not in favor of is if there's a prevailing narrative and it's being imposed on different levels. That is where you will get conflict, and that's where we will get groups organizing and standing up for those rights. Now, the question that many people ask, and as I said, I'm standing here as a South African. I'm standing here as a white South African for purposes of tonight, for the theme, but I don't see myself as a race is not a test for my view. The test for my view is a language on which I'm very proud of, on a culture to which I'm very proud of, and I believe that there's a place for the culture and the language in South Africa. Now, what does Afrikaners want? What do Afrikaners want? Many people wonder this. What do you want in New South Africa? You read in the newspapers, you read in the radio station, the Afrikaners fight for monuments, they fight for language, and a lot of people wonder, what is it that they want? And I can say in one simple sentence, what is it that they want? Afrikaners, and that's the limited portion I'm referring to now, Afrikaners, what they want is a sustainable future for their language to survive. That's the most important thing. For the language to survive in a sustainable manner. That means that in 20 years, when my son, who's now 8 days old, that I can send him to an Afrikaans in a university, not exclusive Afrikaans, a university which presents Afrikaans, for example, as a language. I can visit the various cultural sites without having a question mark today on what are their future, what are their places. To say that we do have a history where we can be proud of, but with a big qualification that if you are in any sense rely on the past or anything, there must become a big qualification, and that is to acknowledge the wrongs of the past. And that's not even a question to debate or a question to even elaborate on further. If you want to be a South African, you need to acknowledge the wrongs of the past, but it does not mean that there's a stripe through everything else of your identity. So there's that very important balance, and I would like to emphasize that. So we want a sustainable future for Afrikaans language, first and foremost. And it's not a surface kind of theme here. If you say you want a sustainable Afrikaans language, let me give you a few examples. It's very difficult to, if you want to have Afrikaans and want to have it relevant, it needs to be talked at, you've got two functions. You've got a high function of a language and a low function of the language. The low function of the language is me and my wife speaking in the kitchen, speaking in front of the television program, me and my friends socializing over weekend. That's the low function of the language. Then you get the high function of the language. That is where the language is in universities, spoken in universities, is taught at, it's instructed in schools, in business, etc. And that is where the Afrikaners really can feel at home, is when you know the language will remain relevant in the future. And that's actually what we want. Now, let's come to the perspective. Can I just see how am I with time? Sorry, I'm afraid I'm too quick. I'm not too quick. Let me get to the perspective that we have. There's three ways in which I view to give you what the perspective is that we have tonight. The first thing is, in order for us to understand where we are today, we will need to go back 20, 25 years where we negotiated for the Constitution. At that negotiation, it was, of course, as all know, a very sensitive time, a very crucial time, and a defining time in our history. But what is important after the 1994 negotiation? What's important, for the first time, you have one document, the Constitution, which encapsulates and involves all South Africans, which it never was been. Now you have to accommodate different groups, different communities, different interests, different viewpoints, everything in one document, and that would be the roadmap for us all going forward. So naturally, you will have expectations. When you look at the negotiation side, let's say on the ANC side, they had certain very strong points they wanted to further. If you look at the more conservative side, they had also strong points they wanted to further. They wanted to have a sort of power sharing model where Afrikaners can still have a sort of a share of the power, because if we are let loose for the majority, we will be oppressed and tomorrow we will die, everybody. There were those fears. And they didn't succeed there. But you have a constitution, for example, I've written it down, you've got the section 6, which speaks about languages, 11 official languages. That's so special. Not a lot of countries can say that. I mean, Namibia, for example, it's got a very rich Afrikaans language culture in Namibia, and Afrikaans is not even an official language of Namibia. You've got 11 languages. The state is required to uphold and advance all those languages. We've got section 3031, which speaks to cultural rights, language rights. We've got section 185, which is a commission for cultural religious rights. We've got all these things, all these expectations. And I think that what happened is we all had expectations that it will flourish in the new South Africa, and it has not. For Afrikaans-speaking people, it seems like we are, in a large sense, that there's a sort of animosity towards Afrikaans. I'll give you 2 examples quickly. I do a lot of work with universities. I've also litigated against universities. And I would like to give you two perspectives, just to illustrate my point. The first one is at the University of Stellenbosch. You've got a province, which is mostly Afrikaans-speaking province, and you've got 3 universities. 2 of the universities is fully English, and then you've got Stellenbosch, which is slowly phasing Afrikaans out. Last year is the first time the percentage tipped in favor of English in spite of Afrikaans. Now, just to show some of the double standards, there was a tweet made by Mr. Piet Leroux. He's a council member of the University of Stellenbosch, and he tweeted the following. He said, Minister Nzimande and Transformania won't win, join Afrikaans alumni. Now, he was commenting on the broader social theme of transformation, and I think it's his good right to do so. We may differ, but it's a concept which we may debate with each other in a way that is suitable for the circumstances. Just prior to his tweet, there was, about the Elsenburg violence, students clashing and fighting. And very, very significantly, the minister only spoke about Piet's tweet. The rector and everything was summoned to Parliament to give a short report. They must answer a few questions. Piet has been suspended from council. He's pending subject to a disciplinary hearing, and at Elsenburg there's not been much. Nothing has been said. For TUT, for example, I think it was last year, there was student protest. More than 100,000 rands of damage was done to cars, to university property by protesting students. Now, I'm not saying students can't protest. What I'm saying is it's a problem when students get so out of hand, they make damage more than 100,000 rands worth. Absolutely. And now at Potch, you have a newspaper who controversially refers to some sort of greeting that students did, which wasn't the truth from the start. And the minister intervened, and he even threatened them with a letter saying that he will stop their funding if there's no attention given. There's a sort of feeling that there are double standards when applying these, and that's why you will have groups as AfriForum organizing to protect these rights. I'm seeing I'm running out of time, so I expect there will be a few questions, so I will clarify this point if you ask me a few questions. Just a last remark. The first one was, what is the expectations? There was expectation, the expectations weren't met. The second one is what is happening. I can give you more example, but the issue is, and the feeling is amongst Afrikaners and Afrikaans-speaking people, is that they are being disadvantaged, and they are being actually, it seems like there's no room for Afrikaans to remain as, for example, as an higher education language and elsewhere. The next issue that we have is, 1 minute, okay. The last one I would have is the question of what are we doing? And the organizations I explained how they function, how they do. So what they are doing is they know that we must then organize ourselves. We must create a space where Afrikaans, for example, can flourish. They have established academia, the private institution. They are very, very active in local government affairs, organizing various branches. And they've got AfriForum just had 10 days of the self-doen actie, self-do initiative, where they went and they fixed thousands of potholes, they fixed boreholes, they did everything on local government level. So it's an initiative to correct self. If something doesn't happen by way of the government, we cannot sit there. We have a responsibility to uplift our communities, and that is what AfriForum has done. I think I've run out of time. I would like to say a few more things, but I'll leave it for the question time. I'm sure there's been a lot more thoughts and themes to cover. Thank you.